The first time he walked past the glass door, he didn't even mean to stop. Rain clung to his jacket. City noise chased his thoughts, and the world felt louder than he could handle. Yet his feet slowed when he saw her reflection inside the shop, calm hands moving through someone's hair as if the chaos outside had never existed. In that moment, he knew something strange and undeniable. If he was ever going to book a session, it would only be with Scarlett. Scarlett had built her quiet reputation one client at a time. She wasn't the loudest stylist, nor the most dramatic. What set her apart was her presence. When people sat in her chair, they felt seen without being questioned, soothed without being rushed. Her touch was gentle but confident, her voice soft yet grounding. To many, her sessions were not just grooming rituals but rare moments of peace. She understood that people carried invisible weights, and she treated each head, each face, with the care reserved for fragile things. He finally booked after weeks of hesitation. His name appeared on her schedule with a short note. First time, nervous. Scarlett read it before opening the shop that morning. She smiled, not because she was flattered, but because she recognized the fear behind those words. She had once written something similar in her own journal when she first started, afraid she would never be good enough, afraid people would never trust her hands. When he arrived, his shoulders were tense, his eyes darting around the room as if he might turn back at any second. Scarlett greeted him simply, without performance. She offered him a seat, a warm towel, and a moment to breathe. The silence between them was not awkward. It was intentional, the kind that allows the nervous system to slowly unclench. As she began the scalp massage, the outside world faded for him. The rhythmic sound of water, the soft brush of her fingers, the careful combing through knots he didn't even realize he carried. His thoughts resisted at first, replaying worries, old conversations, unfinished regrets. But Scarlett's steady pace didn't change. She didn't rush him toward calm. She waited for it to arrive on its own. Scarlett, too, was fighting something beneath her calm surface. Running the shop alone had not been easy. There were months she barely broke even. Nights she wondered if choosing this quieter path had been a mistake. Friends told her she should expand, go viral, become louder to survive. But every time she tried to imagine that version of herself, it felt wrong. She didn't want to chase attention. She wanted to earn trust. Halfway through the session, he spoke for the first time. He admitted he hadn't booked anywhere else in years. That sitting in a chair usually made him anxious. That being touched felt difficult after a life filled with constant pressure to perform, to be strong, to never slow down. His voice cracked slightly, surprising both of them. Scarlett listened without interrupting. She adjusted her pressure, grounding him through her hands rather than words. She told him gently that it was okay to rest here. That nothing was expected of him in this chair. Not conversation, not gratitude, just presence. The challenge they faced in that moment was invisible, but powerful. For him, it was learning to trust again, to allow care without suspicion. For Scarlett, it was holding space without absorbing the weight of someone else's pain. She had learned through hard experience that empathy without boundaries could drain even the strongest heart. As the wash continued, the tension in his shoulders softened. His breathing slowed. The constant internal noise dimmed to a whisper. For the first time in a long while, he felt safe doing nothing at all. Scarlett felt it too. That subtle shift when a client finally lets go. It reminded her why she chose this path, despite the uncertainty. When the session ended, he didn't jump up immediately. He sat there, eyes closed, as if memorizing the feeling. He thanked her, not with exaggerated praise, but with quiet sincerity. He said he finally understood why people waited for her availability, why they wouldn't book unless it was Scarlett. It wasn't about exclusivity, it was about connection. After he left, Scarlett cleaned her station slowly. She thought about the balance she was constantly navigating, caring deeply without burning out, staying true to herself in a world that rewarded noise over nuance. Some days felt like an uphill climb, but moments like this reminded her that impact didn't have to be loud to be lasting. Weeks passed, and he returned. This time, his posture was different, still reserved, but lighter. He told her the sessions had become something he looked forward to, a reminder that slowing down was not weakness, that receiving care was not something he had to earn. Scarlett faced her own challenge soon after. A landlord notice, rising cost, the possibility of having to close or relocate. Fear crept back in, whispering doubt she thought she had outgrown. She considered compromising her values to survive. Shorter sessions, less connection, more volume. But then she remembered her clients, including him, who didn't come just for the service, but for the feeling of being grounded. She chose to trust the slower path. She adjusted, sought help, and leaned into the community she had quietly built. The response surprised her. People showed up, booked ahead, recommended her, not with flashy posts, but with honest words. On one of his later visits, he noticed something different in her energy, a mix of fatigue and quiet determination. He asked carefully if she was okay. Scarlett hesitated, then shared a little. Not the full burden, but enough. In that exchange, the roles shifted just slightly. Care flowed both ways. The resolution came not as a dramatic victory, but as steady progress. Scarlett kept her shop. He kept coming back, not out of dependency, but out of respect for the space they had created together. Two people, each learning in their own way that gentleness could coexist with strength. The story ends where it began, with a door opening and the outside world waiting. But now, both of them carried something different with them when they stepped out. He carried the knowledge that peace could be found in small, intentional moments. She carried renewed faith that her quiet work mattered. The message lingered long after the chair was empty. In a world that rushes, choosing care is an act of courage. Trust is built slowly, one calm breath at a time. And sometimes, the reason someone won't book unless it's Scarlett is not because of who she is to them, but because of who they become when they finally allow themselves to rest. The second time he booked, it wasn't out of desperation, it was intentional. Days before the appointment, he caught himself counting hours, not because he needed another session, but because that chair had become a rare pause in his life. Between work calls, family expectations, and the constant pressure to keep moving forward, he realized how little space he gave himself to simply exist. The idea of sitting there again under Scarlett's calm presence felt like oxygen. Scarlett noticed the change the moment he walked in. His shoulders were still guarded, but not locked. His eyes no longer searched for exits. He greeted her with a quiet nod, familiar but respectful, as if he didn't want to disturb the peace of the room. That subtle shift told her something important. Trust was taking root. She invited him to sit, and this time, the silence felt different. It wasn't cautious anymore. It was comfortable. As she prepared the water and oils, Scarlett reflected on how easily people underestimated the power of consistency. Healing didn't always come from one intense moment. Sometimes it came from returning again and again to a space that asked nothing of you. As her fingers moved through his scalp, he spoke sooner than last time. He talked about his days, how loud everything felt, how even small decisions exhausted him. He admitted that slowing down scared him because it forced him to feel things he usually ignored. Scarlett listened, adjusting her rhythm, allowing his words to flow without trying to fix them. But beneath her calm, Scarlett was facing her own quiet struggle. Business had been unpredictable lately. Cancellations hurt more than she admitted. Each empty slot felt like a personal failure, even though she knew it wasn't. She carried the weight silently, believing it was her responsibility alone. Still, as she worked, she reminded herself why she had chosen this path. Not for certainty, but for meaning. Halfway through the session, the challenge deepened for him. Memories surfaced unexpectedly. Moments when he had been strong for everyone else but invisible to himself. His breathing changed, and Scarlett sensed it immediately. She slowed her movements, grounding him again, anchoring him to the present. She didn't ask questions. She didn't interrupt. She simply stayed. That was the hardest part for both of them. For him, allowing emotion without apology. For her, resisting the urge to carry what was not hers to carry. She had learned that support didn't mean sacrifice. It meant presence without self-erasure. By the time she began combing his hair, something had softened inside him. He realized he didn't need to explain himself to be understood. That realization alone felt heavier than any massage. Lighter, too. When the session ended, he stayed seated for a moment, then said something unexpected. He thanked her not just for the service, but for the patience. He said it felt rare, being given time without being rushed toward a conclusion. Scarlett smiled, not outwardly, but inside. Those words reached a place she rarely let clients see. After he left, the shop felt fuller, even in quiet. Scarlett sat for a moment before cleaning up, acknowledging her own fatigue. She was learning, too, learning that her work mattered even when numbers were uncertain. That connection didn't have to be dramatic to be real. Outside, he walked slower than usual. The city noise returned, but it didn't crush him the same way. He carried the calm with him, fragile but present. For the first time, he understood that healing wasn't something you completed. It was something you practiced. Chapter 2 didn't end with answers. It ended with awareness. Two people, still carrying their own battles, choosing to meet them gently. And in that choice, something stronger than habit began to form. A quiet understanding that sometimes returning to the same chair is not about comfort alone, but about learning how to show up for yourself again. By the third appointment, the booking felt less like a luxury and more like a promise he made to himself. Life hadn't slowed down. If anything, it had grown heavier. Deadlines piled up, responsibilities blurred together, and nights stretched longer than they should have. Yet in the middle of that chaos, the date on Scarlett's schedule stood firm, a small island of certainty in a restless sea. Scarlett prepared the shop that morning with unusual care. She had barely slept the night before, her mind circling the same questions again and again. Was she doing enough to keep this place alive? Would quiet dedication always be enough in a world that demanded speed and spectacle? She looked around the room she had built with patience and purpose, and for a brief moment, doubt pressed hard against her chest. When he arrived, he sensed something different immediately. Not weakness, but weight. He recognized it because he carried the same look himself on most days. They exchanged a few words, simple and polite, but there was an unspoken awareness between them now. They were no longer strangers meeting by chance. They were two people sharing a familiar silence. As he settled into the chair, Scarlett began the routine they both knew. Warm water, steady hands, slow movements. This time, she let herself breathe with the rhythm of the work, allowing it to calm her as much as it calmed him. The challenge for her was new. She had always been the steady one. Now she had to learn how to remain present while carrying her own uncertainty. He spoke carefully, choosing his words as if they mattered more here. He admitted that the calm he felt during these sessions didn't always last. That outside the shop, the world still demanded too much, too fast. He wondered aloud if something was wrong with him for needing this pause so badly. Scarlett answered him for the first time, not just with touch, but with words. She told him that needing rest was not a flaw, that systems were built to keep people running until they forgot how to stop. Her voice stayed soft, but there was truth in it, shaped by her own experience of choosing a slower path. Midway through the session, the real challenge surfaced. A phone notification lit up Scarlett's screen nearby, reminding her of an overdue payment. For a moment, her focus wavered. He felt it, the slightest change in pressure, the brief absence of her grounding presence. It startled him more than he expected. He realized how deeply he relied on this space. Scarlett noticed, too. She paused, turned her phone face down, and returned fully to the moment. That small act carried meaning. She was choosing him, choosing the work, choosing herself. The calm returned, deeper than before, because it had been tested. As she combed his hair, he understood something quietly powerful. The peace he found here wasn't something Scarlett gave him. She simply reminded him that it already existed within him. That realization shifted something fundamental. He could carry this steadiness beyond these walls, even when things felt overwhelming. When the session ended, he didn't rush to speak. Instead, he stood and looked around the shop, seeing it not just as a service space, but as a reflection of Scarlett's values. Care over speed, depth over noise. He thanked her, this time with a steadiness in his voice that hadn't been there before. After he left, Scarlett sat alone again, but the doubt felt different now. It was still there, but quieter. She realized that her impact couldn't always be measured in numbers or trends. It lived in moments like these, in people who returned, not out of habit, but out of growth. Chapter 3. Closed, with both of them standing at separate thresholds. He stepped back into a demanding world with a stronger sense of self. She stayed behind, recommitting to her path with renewed clarity. Neither of them had solved everything, but both had learned that stability is not the absence of struggle. It is the decision to remain present, even when uncertainty tries to pull you away. And in that shared understanding, the chair became more than a place to sit. It became a quiet symbol of resilience, reminding them that gentleness, when chosen again and again, can become a powerful form of strength.